Hello, and welcome back to another week of News Bytes. This week's newsletter is on Luke chapter 15, and it's called Come Home. I'll get right into that. From Eliyahu. Shalom, friends. Division in families is heartbreaking, but today it has become the norm. Consider these divorce statistics and how they affect children. Half of all American children will witness the breakup of a parent's marriage. Of these, close to half will also see the breakup of a parent's second marriage. Among the millions of children who have seen their parents divorce, 1 of every 10 will also live through 3 or more parental marriage breakups. 40% of children growing up in America today are being raised without their fathers. And, of all children born to married parents this year, 50% will experience the divorce of their parents before they reach their 18th birthday. Of course, all of these dismal statistics apply to children of families that have or had 2 married parents, which isn't true of many children today. In the United States, since the 1960s, there's been a marked increase in the number of children living with a single parent only. In 1960, only 9% of USA children lived in single-parent households, while 93% of white children and 75% of black children lived in 2-parent homes. The 1980 United States Census reported that 19.5% were single-parent households at that time. 20 years later, the 2010 United States Census showed a jump in that statistic up to 27% of all children living with only one parent. As we approach the start of a new decade, it's likely that number has continued to rise, estimated now at 1/3 or more of American children living with one parent only. It's even worse than that for children of some segments of society. Don Lemon, on Saturday, July 27, 2013, in a commentary on CNN, stated that more than 72% of African American births are out of wedlock. Here's exactly what he said. "Just because you can have a baby, it doesn't mean you should," Lemon said, "especially without planning for one or getting married first. More than 72% of children in the African American community are born out of wedlock, and that means absent fathers. And the studies show that lack of a male role model is an express train ride to prison, and the cycle continues." Lemon took a lot of flack in social media for this factual statement. And yet, as he pointed out, the lack of the father in the home continues to be a root cause of social troubles in the African American community, with the same cause of massive problems for a growing number of families across the board. Responsible fathers provide a stability in the home that children desperately need, much to the chagrin of many today. We need to look no further than this one problem to discover why so many young people today find it difficult to cope with complex relationships, and why society seems to be getting crazy. The feminist sexual revolution, so prized by many today, has destroyed families, and since families are the foundation on which society is built, has devastated society as well. If you think that this is an overstatement, look at the data above for 1960, just before the feminist sexual revolution, and then compare that to where we are at today. As we pointed out, in 1960, only 9% of USA children lived in a single-parent household, while 93% of white children and 75% of black children lived in 2-parent homes. Today, numbers like that are an impossible dream. I'm really pointing out the obvious reason why so many people are finding it so difficult to get along. None of this is written here to attack people who have been casualties of the cultural revolution documented in this article. Far from it. All of us have been victims of massive propaganda over the last 60 years that was meant to cause the very social chaos that we are all now living with. If you see what I'm saying, have some compassion on the crazy people who don't understand how the universe is really meant to work, especially if they're part of your extended family. They have been doing the best they can, and in many cases, having nothing and no one to point the way for them. And they really don't know that they are off exploring an impossible rabbit hole. Many young people have good reason to be so angry. Having been robbed in their childhood of the stable and balanced family nest all children need to thrive and grow, even if they don't even know that that's their underlying problem. If you are an older person who has seen all of this social change unfold over the decades and you know the difference between sanity and this mess we have now, well, if that's you, then you might be old and tired, but your work here isn't done. Pray and ask the Father to bring at least one such young person into your life who's willing to receive a little love and wisdom and the knowledge of God. We can't save them all, but it's still not too late to help some of them to get pointed in the right direction. There are young people out there who are yearning to find a faithful and wise old mentor who will receive them without judgment, with the Father's heart. And maybe you can be that guy. This newsletter was inspired by the story of the prodigal son, found in Luke 15. Never has that parable been more relevant than it is right now in 2019. Now, I do have some comments on this newsletter. Growing up, my dad was absent. I could go on and on about how angsty I was as a teenager and how insecure I was, and then how I found my one and only real father. I really could, okay? But instead, I'm just going to link to my testimony below, and you can go watch it if you really want to. So, after reading this newsletter, there's only so many things that I can really say without crying, but here's one. Kids need encouragement, and they need direction. They need the right encouragement, though, and the right direction. Like E was saying, and there's so many directions to go nowadays, but most of them lead to being enslaved by Satan. And you can offer a different direction. A direction to Yahweh's all-encompassing love and forgiveness, acceptance, and peace. And you can be the person that leads them to Him. Thank you for listening. If you like this video, like and subscribe. Leave your comments and thoughts below, and watch the meeting that went along with this newsletter, right here. See you next week.